Throughout the centuries, there have been many different execution methods used, from the incredibly savage and barbaric hanging, drawing and quartering, to even using animals such as elephants to crush a condemned person. Different equipment and animals were even used to administer justice onto a criminal, but one of the most brutal and savage methods of execution that caused great pain and suffering was keel hauling. This was where a sailor would be thrown overboard a ship and dragged under the keel of the ship. It was used as a punishment method, but was so severe that the torture caused by it easily resulted in death. Join us today as we look at one of history's most brutal execution methods, keel hauling. Remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. Keel hauling, also known as Keelhauling in Dutch, was a form of punishment, torture and execution enacted upon sailors who were at sea. If a sailor committed an offence on board a ship, then they would be tied to a line, which was then looped underneath the ship that they were sailing on. The prisoner would then be thrown overboard, over one side of the ship, and would be dragged underneath the ship's keel from one side to another. This would be very painful and very dangerous, and would often result in the person suffering very serious injuries and psychological pain. The first thing they would think is that they were drowning, and this often happened if the victim was dragged slowly, and if they did not emerge out of the sea quickly. They were often pulled out of the water dead, having succumbed to the ocean. Also underneath the bottom of the ship were barnacles and other pieces of marine growth and life, such as shells, and when a victim was keel-hauled, they would often smash against the hull of the boat, and this would lead to the barnacles stabbing them in their back, causing many different wounds on their body. As the ship was at sea, there would be no immediate medical attention available, and these wounds would often get infected and would also lead to slow death. Victims would smash their heads against the ship's hull or keel if the ship was moving, which could knock them unconscious and also then result in their drowning. It's believed that keel hauling was mostly used by pirates and on board pirate vessels, and the first known recording of this practice comes from the Greeks, who used it to punish those found guilty of piracy around 700 BC. But during the 17th century, many English writers wrote of the practice being used on English naval ships. Because of how brutal keel hauling was, there were no records of it being carried out inside of ships' logs and records from the 1600s, and some historians doubt that it did ever occur in Britain or on board British ships. There was an account in Britain of keel hauling on HMS Alexandria, which was debated in Parliament in 1880. However, in Europe, in the Netherlands, it was used as recorded punishment inside of the Dutch Navy. One painting named The Keel Hauling of the Ship's Surgeon of Admiral Jan van Ness shows a huge crowd gathered to watch the practice being performed on a surgeon. It was used as an intimidating form of show punishment with the purpose of causing great fear to other sailors and possible offenders. An account of keel hauling states that keel hauling, a punishment inflicted for various offences in the Dutch Navy. It is performed by plunging the delinquent repeatedly under the ship's bottom on one side and hoisting him up the other after having passed under the keel. The blocks or pulleys by which he is suspended are fastened to the opposite extremities of the main yard, and a weight of lead or iron is hung upon his legs to sink him to a competent depth. By this apparatus he is drawn close up to the yard arm, and thence let fall suddenly into the sea, where passing under the ship's bottom, he is hoisted up onto the opposite side of the vessel. As this extraordinary sentence is executed with a serenity of temper peculiar to the Dutch, the culprit is allowed sufficient intervals to recover the sense of pain, of which indeed he is frequently deprived during the operation. In truth, a temporary insensibility to his sufferings ought by no means to be construed into a disrespect of his judges, when we consider that this punishment is supposed to have peculiar propriety in the depth of winter, whilst the flakes of ice are floating on the stream, and that it is continued till the culprit is almost suffocated for want of air, benumbed with the cold of water, or stunned with the blows his head received by striking the ship's bottom. It's believed that keel hauling was an evolution of the medieval punishment of ducking, which was where an accused criminal would be submerged in water from a ducking stool or chair. Many women were accused of witchcraft and were subsequently ducked and actually died from being drowned by the practice. Keel hauling was a brutal and barbaric method of punishment and execution, which was used by navies and sailors to punish unruly staff on board a ship and also pirates. There were other methods of execution used to punish pirates, such as gibbeting, in which their remains were displayed on the shores of a prominent dock, but keel hauling was rare in the fact it used a ship as the executioner's axe. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.